Hello, and welcome to Community Pulse, a public affairs show about public health in Chicago on CAN-TV. My name is Levi Moore, and today my guests are Antwonette, Burton, and Alysha Hart from EmVenio Clinical Trials.
Hi. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Let me frame the show for you, okay? The Foxglove Alliance, where I serve as coordinator, we've had this initiative that we've done a number of shows about more minorities in medical research. And a big part of that is, clinical trials, trying to get more people to participate in clinical trials. And then there's the other part, which is really kind of like the solution, which is to get more youth to enter into careers in public health and medicine where they may one day lead clinical trials. So I met EmVenio representatives about 2.5, 3 years ago. They were in the Illinois Medical District, where I'm located, and where CAN-TV is located. And the science director for the Illinois Medical District said, there's this company doing something really different with clinical trials. You have to come over for the debut event. And I went, and so they were on a show, EmVenio reps were initially on the show about 2.5 years ago. And there's been another creative change in how they're conducting business. So we'll get to that in a few. But first, tell our audience about you. Who are you? Where are you, native Chicagoan? Are you a Sox fan, Cubs fan, whatever?
Well, my name is Alysha Hart. I'm a nurse practitioner by trade, and I work as a sub-investigator in EmVenio Research. And I am a Chicago native, south side of Chicago, whoop whoop. So I am a Chicago Sox fan. Well, I'm a fair weather fan, but we can talk about that off camera. So yeah, I am passionate about all things health wellness. So I love this clinical research sector, and I'm really excited to talk to you about it today.
Okay.
And my name is Antwonette Burton. I am a sub-investigator as well, nurse practitioner. I am a Chicago native as well. I am a White Sox fan, but more of a Chicago Bulls fan of the 90s, if I'm being honest. I come with over 20 years of nursing experience, and I work for EmVenio Clinical Trials as a nurse practitioner.
Thanks. Now, let's talk about who you work for. History, is it national, local, what you do?
Yeah, so EmVenio Research is a decentralized and community-based clinical research organization. And so traditionally, we have been focused on expanding access to research participation, something you mentioned earlier. So the company was built around the idea that people shouldn't travel or have to travel long distances to participate in clinical trials. And so we at EmVenio, we partner with healthcare systems and communities across the country. So we're not just situated in Illinois. We bring research directly to patients through mobile units, which we'll get into. And now we have the more embedded research models where we have brick and mortars.
Yeah, because the mobile unit, that was the what had me running over to see
Yes.
How are they doing this? So yeah.
Yeah, so we've sort of transitioned out. We still have mobile units, but we do have brick and mortars now. And so, again, our focus is on access, representation, and increasing or just reducing barriers to clinical research.
Okay. Now, you're doing embedded a little bit different too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we've joined with Prime, and so we left the medical district, and now we're moved over to St. Mary's, Prime St. Mary's, where we are embedded in their hospital system to run clinical trials over there.
That will be, have you been doing it? I think you just started there in January?
The Chicago site is new in around January,
okay.
Yes.
So would you say, have you been there long enough to say if it's working or not, or is it still kind of being developed?
It's still kind of being developed. So we had the mobile medical unit, and Basically, what that demonstrated is that there's a lot of success in bringing clinical trials to the community, right? And so we're just building on that previous model by partnering with, healthcare systems and clinics and healthcare settings. And it just creates a better continuity of clinical research, strengthens our relationships with local providers, and also helps research become part of something that's more routine rather than something that feels separate or something that you can't access. So we are actually in Wicker Park now area, but it's easily accessible through your car, through public transit. So yeah, we're still building on that. It's very new, but I think it's safe for us to say that it is, going to be successful insofar as that we are improving access in different ways and still building upon that mobile research model as well.
I don't mean for this to be a gotcha question, but it was something we were talking about in our green room. Okay, been very open about this. Okay, I've participated in a clinical trial, and so I've been on this patient advisory board, and out of the 12 of us, about 9 or 10 of us have been, trial participants also. I found out something that was fascinating. I was the only one who actually had a physician he actually found the clinical trial for me. So how are you kind of working within the Prime system or to let them know that you're there or whatever?
Yeah, so a number of ways. We do go out and speak to a number of the physicians within the Prime system. We host events. We have open houses where you can come in and tour our facility. But also as we speak to clinical trials a little bit more in depth because we're both sub-investigators and nurse practitioners who work within the clinical trial system. So we can give more education about where to find them. So even if it's something that we don't particularly have, you can always look at clinicaltrials.gov. It'll give you a multitude of areas where clinical trials are available. But then also teaching providers as well and other nurse practitioners that, hey, we have these trials available that may be beneficial to your patients.
Okay, well, now here's something I get hit with a lot. A friend will come up and say, well, what is it like to be in a clinical trial? Like, how do you, when you start, what happens? And please, when you talk about just, how your process, your protocol.
Sure. So people can get involved with clinical trials, and there are a variety of different entry points. So like Antwonette was mentioning, we can have a referral from a provider, which we have done through, educating the providers about, clinical research as a treatment modality. We do community events, and that way we can have that one-on-one with potential participants to talk about clinical research, dispel any misconceptions or myths about clinical trials. And then we also use some sites like Power and clinicaltrials.gov where people actually find these clinical trials on their own and they call us. So that's the entry point for the most part. And then when you come, we can give you more information about the informed consent process because these clinical trials, it's important to note that they are voluntary trials, right? We want you to make an informed decision about what this can do and what it can't do, right? Oftentimes people come in thinking that they will be a guinea pig or, these are sort of scary things to be a part of. But again, they can be viable treatment modalities when conventional treatments have failed. And we could get your physician on board as needed.
Okay, yeah, because another one, it's like, okay, if I have condition X, who determines that I do have condition X? Is it my doctor or do you do it or what?
So are you speaking in regards to what?
For like a particular clinical trial, like, okay, we ran a clinical trial for a particular, let's say, autoimmune disease. But do they have to have verification from their doctor as they go to you, or do you also verify it?
So it may depend upon that protocol.
Okay.
And so that's determined. We will let some basic information out regarding the protocol to recruit for that trial. So it may say if you have this illness, then call us for a clinical trial. If you have symptoms of, if you need more information about. So that's kind of something that the recruitment team will kind of put together, so we'll know how to recruit for that trial. So it could be a very number of ways that we can determine whether or not you should be in it.
Okay, another question is, how long is it? What kind of time commitment do I have to give for this?
Clinical trials can run anywhere. They can be short-term clinical trials over a few days to a few years. And that doesn't mean you have to come to the clinic every day to participate, but there will be like intermittent visits that you'll have to make at the clinic. And so it can be a commitment, but again, that is a part of the informed consent process. So we give you that knowledge so that you can make an informed decision about whether or not you want to participate in a trial. So it varies, and I hate to say this, it depends. It depends.
But we are forthcoming.
Yeah.
Right.
When you are being consented for a trial, we are very forthcoming about what the expectations are, and so you can make an informed decision about what you will want to do.
Okay, and just stopping up. Because of your unique situation, do I have to be within the Prime Health Network to participate in a trial?
No, you do not.
Okay.
No, you don't. And again, there's a whole gambit. We do a lot of different clinical trials in different specialty areas. And like you mentioned, you may know that you have a diagnosis, but, a lot of the clinical trials will do confirmatory testing.
Okay.
And so you won't necessarily, you're not guaranteed to be in the clinical trial per se.
Yeah, there's one that's like, well, how do I know that I'm just not getting some fake pill or whatever?
Well, that is a part of the consenting process. Randomized control trials call for someone receiving a placebo and another person receiving an active drug, but you don't know what you're getting. And that's the risk that you assume when you participate in a clinical trial. And so some people want to assume the risk and some don't. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned common misconceptions that I'm sure some of our viewers may think is gospel. So what would some of them be that you have to dispel?
Yeah, Alysha touched on one. I'm a guinea pig, right? You just wanted, you want my information, and again, that's why we have informed consent. You know exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and when we're doing it, and so there's no mystery. And again, completely voluntary. And just to know that with any clinical trial, you can always exit the trial. You are not obligated to complete the trial just because you sign informed consent. A lot of people don't know that. They think once they sign, they're in for the duration, and you don't have to be.
It's highly regulated,
Yes,
right? These are not just willy-nilly, we're coming off of the street. These are highly regulated, closely monitored clinical trials.
You remember when they were looking for a vaccine for COVID?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard the word Tuskegee that much in my
I
whole
know,
life.
I know. And that's not even the original name. It was public health. Yeah, but okay.
But yeah, that all popped up and everything. So
Yeah.
what trials are you working on now?
Yeah, so we have trials related to respiratory illnesses such as COPD. We have vaccine trials. We have psychiatric trials, some that focus on autism, schizophrenia, bipolar, major depressive disorder. We have autism, ASD, autism spectrum disorder. Any others, Alysha?
AMKD. We have an AMKD study as well, and that is apolipoprotein 1 mediated kidney disease, and that disproportionately affects. We do have some studies some clinical trials that focus on populations that are disproportionately affected by illness, and that's one of them. Not all of our trials are like that, but I think you captured all of our therapeutic areas right now.
Okay. Also wondering, because with the youth pathways component of M3R, how did you get your jobs? Like, what did you study? Just in case there's somebody out there that's like, that's a part of medicine I never thought about. So what would be the path for like, let's say, a high school student?
Well,
I haphazardly got into clinical research,
me as well.
but I will say that there is a distinct pathway for nursing. Like you want to go, you get your bachelor's degree, you get a bachelor's in nursing, associates in nursing, and then you can get a bachelor's. And then you'll have what's called a BSN or ASN, where you're associate's prepared or bachelor's prepared nurse. And then you can go get your master's degree, which there is a specialty called family nurse practitioners, which both Antwonette and I fall under. And then that sort of positions you to make clinical decisions independently. Some states where you need a collaborating physician. And so there are instances where you can get into clinical research as a sub-I, as a nurse. You can do a research coordinator in academic settings. We are not in an academic setting. We are in a research organization that is separate from an academic institution. But you can find different entry points into clinical research, but mostly through academia, private sectors, or biopharmaceutical sectors. There are tons of biopharmaceutical companies that will have nurses perform as clinical research coordinators and things of such.
Anything to add?
Yeah, same. I pretty much took the same pathway. I'm a nurse RN to start, and then went back and got my master's degree as a family nurse practitioner. And so I work as a sub-investigator. But as Alysha touched on, there's multiple avenues that you can get into clinical research. You can be a research coordinator. You can be site director. I think I kind of fell into it as well. I think that there are various clinical avenues that you can get in that's not always promoted. We think nurses have to go work at the bedside and we have to work in schools and clinics, but there's a whole sector of, of jobs that we can work in that were really beneficial. Our skill set transfers very well, and so I think just maybe developing relationships and finding mentors who work in those fields, not being afraid to reach out and LinkedIn and speak to people like you. Who
this is really important because people won't know about it unless you, like I said, we didn't know. We kind of found a path, but we had to force it. So. It's important that you kind of spread the word.
It's funny because these various healthcare job youth pathways programs, and I'll tell you, I kind of elbowed my way into public health about 11 years ago. I'm really a government relations person. So they would reference these positions and say, I've never heard of that job.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? And I said, okay, number one, you need to, we're getting better at this. We need to actually have job descriptions, career paths for what these jobs are, because unless you have a relative or a neighbor who's in healthcare, you will never know that these jobs exist. If you could tell a person who is squeamish about a clinical trial, and we actually saw this at a forum where a woman wanted to enter into a clinical trial, and her son, adult son, had a fit and wouldn't let her be in it, even though, just like, so you just want your mother to have this chronic hypertension, okay? What would be, if that person, like what would you want to say to that son?
Well, I would just say that clinical research impacts every medication, medical device, vaccine, or any treatment you can think of has gone through a clinical trial. Yep. So they're going to be out there anyway. Not to, undermine his fears, but to dispel them, because these are things that are going to happen in order to ensure that this medication is safe. And so participating in a clinical trial is, again, just a way to just improve science and push the science forward so that his mom could potentially have better outcomes.
This is going to be of a broader industry. What do you see as some of the next steps are in clinical trials, like the evolution of, like, will the protocols be different 5-10 years from now? We were talking about the impact that AI is having on stuff, the impact that quantum will have.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of novel treatments, and I think that's exceptional. I think with AI and then some of the vaccines, like you're seeing more information about, I read something about pancreatic cancer vaccine and these things that are being developed in trials that usually have, these poor outcomes.
Well,
We're seeing the change in this
pancreatic, that's
yeah, but it's like we're seeing those now when maybe before we hadn't saw that evidence kind of coming out that we can develop a effective vaccine. So I think we'll see a lot of novel treatments, which is really, really exceptional. Like that's great work that everyone's doing. So I'm excited about the future of clinical research myself.
There's some friends. I was at this quantum event, and we were just talking about, could you imagine, well, actually, the COVID vaccines were really kind of developed in record time. But could you imagine if they were running those models through quantum computers? The speed of how they could have developed it and then gotten it to the clinical trial part.
Yeah.
Now, this is one, I think that the answer is going to be something that we do, that we may not like to hear, but it's been asked a lot. Okay, after I've been in what happens to my info after I've been in this clinical trial? Do I get it back? Do I get to see what?
So it is protected, and so your clinical data is protected, but it is at the discretion of the sponsor. So again, throughout the informed consent, it depends. And during the informed consent process, each sponsor will disclose what and how they will handle your clinical data or research data at the termination of the trial.
And for how long?
And for how long?
Yep.
Okay, and I know that you do public awareness events. Stuff like. Do you have anything coming up this summer or?
Yeah, we do have something. We'll be in the community this week. Actually, on Friday, we'll be teaming up with Thousand Branches Wellness at a mental health resource fair, and that's this Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. And that's at Grace Episcopalian Church, 637 South Dearborn Street in Chicago, Illinois. So we'd love for everybody to come out and say hi to us, ask us all the questions, and dispel myths in real time.
Oh, and you know what? I forgot your website, so people can. What's the?
EmVenio.com.
Yeah, and you can reach us. Actually, our telephone number is 312-238-9779, or you can go to our website, like Antwonette mentioned.
Yep.
Okay. EmVenio team, it's been a pleasure. I'm sure it will not be the last time that we do something together, but thank you for appearing on Community Pulse. The next show will probably be done by the other co-host, Cora Love, and I should be back because legislative session is winding down in Springfield, so you'll probably see me next month doing a legislative recap on how the General Assembly operated and what it did to impact healthcare in Chicago. So once again, I'm Levi Moore, and for the first time, we're doing something a little bit different. Roll the credits.